We recently looked at older voters in Arizona and their impact on this year's elections. Tonight, we hear about younger voters, those aged 30 and younger, and their political views and beliefs. Tom Riley and Jackie Salat are co-directors of the ASU Center for an Independent and Sustainable Democracy, which is out with a new survey of Gen Z voters. And that's what we're going to talk about. Thank you both for coming here. Tom, we'll start with you. So basically, 30 and younger is who you talk to here.
We did. So, in 2020 and 2022, we saw some of the highest participation of young people voting. But there's indications that that's falling off and that perhaps young people might be sitting out. So what we wanted to do is to look at Arizona Gen Z voters, those under the age of 30s, to figure out, are you going to show up? What are the issues that are most important to you? And what are your feelings about the political system in general?
Yeah, and Jackie, from what it's 2 out of 3 Gen Z voters, they do plan to vote in November. True?
Yes, well, that's what our survey showed. And it's really, Ted, it's like an amazing story because part of what we saw in the survey is there's an abiding faith in the democratic process and in people wanting to participate and make a difference. But that lives side by side with a tremendous sense of discomfort with the way the political system is operating. Something like 80% of respondents said they think the Democratic and Republican parties are out of touch with the folks of their generation. So there's a lot of conflict out there.
Yeah, we got 80% current political system doesn't work for their generation. And Democrats and Republicans don't want what's best for the country. That's a pretty cynical outlook.
I would be alarmed. I mean, registered voters under the age of 30 are distinctly independent. 49% of them, more than the two parties combined. About a third of them are Latino. If I was part of the campaigns of Republicans and Democrats, I would be very concerned that 80% of these respondents basically has said that the parties don't have the best interest and they don't represent the interest of young people. And when we did the focus groups, as we designed the survey, this was really pronounced of how angry and upset young people are about the parties.
And what are they angry about? What are they most angry about when it comes to politics and it comes to the two parties right now?
Close to 60% think that all politicians are corrupt. That's an incredible number. They feel that the parties have restricted the political process. So if you look at some of the data points, we saw that 95% of young people think that all voters should have complete and equal access to the electoral process regardless of their affiliation. That's huge. And you mentioned in your news report, of course, the initiative that was just filed for the ballot would actually deal with that question. They think the system is biased and they want it reformed.
Ted, what came out in the focus groups was that young people felt that the parties were not helpful in giving them information to make informed decisions. They felt that every issue was politicized, that it was a black or white response when so many of the issues that they're struggling with are very complex.
Sounds like they think everything's a sales job then.
They do, and they have decided not to be part of the parties. And I think that has tremendous implications moving forward.
Well, other things, other beliefs, other concerns. I would imagine housing, I would imagine inflation, same as others, but from a different perspective.
Cost of living, very big concern. Affordable housing, very big concern. Water supply, a very big concern. Yeah, that was like 81% of respondents. And fair and secure elections, that polled very high. So there's kind of an awareness out there among younger voters that there's a systemic problem, that there's lack of trust, and that the system isn't working for them.
But Ted, what's encouraging is that 2/3 of them said they're going to show up. So despite their frustration with the political system, and despite other avenues to voice their concern, they're indicating they're going to show up at the ballot box.
Are they indicating certain types of candidates? Obviously, Jackie mentioned some issues here, but they're going to show up. What are they going to show up and vote for? What are they going to vote against?
Well, I think, when we looked at the top issues, we had 20 top issues. They were primarily economic, as we talked about, secure, fair elections, water issues, which, really scores they're engaged, and also reproductive rights. But when we asked them the question about ballot initiatives, today was the deadline to get your ballot initiatives, particularly for those that did not vote, that they registered in 2020 and did not vote, and independents. The ballot initiatives of reproductive rights, fair elections, and wages,
Minimum wage,
minimum
yeah.
wage,
Tipping
were
wage.
all drivers, indicators that it's going to drive them to the polls.
What? I know that you guys actually asked about where they got Gen Z voters get their news and information. What'd you find out?
This won't surprise you. They get a lot of it from social media,
Yeah.
Online sources. They didn't report Horizon as a major source.
Well, that was a given. Yeah. But you know what else? They didn't. I mean, print media is like almost gone from.
Yeah, well, it was like 10 or 12%
Yes.
or something.
But
Very
I'll tell you what
low.
came out in the focus groups is very interesting, because I think that we get alarmed is, okay, they're not reading the newspapers, they're not listening to news, they're on TikTok and that's where they're getting their information. But when pushed, when I asked them, okay, so how do you determine if there's factual information? In our focus groups, young people said, we Google. We don't take everything at face value. We may be introduced to it on social media, but it doesn't mean that we don't fact check. And I found that very encouraging.
Yeah, indeed. Can you compare? I know this is difficult to do, but can you compare to previous under 30 generations? Does this seem? It seems awfully cynical for young folks, but that's just me. What do you think?
Well, one thing I would say is that I once had a conversation actually with Howard Dean about
Yes.
this. He said, oh yeah, young people are registering as independents, but they're going to turn out to be Democrats because there's no place else to go. I don't think that that is going to be the case going forward. And we saw that 40% of Gen Z independents would consider voting for an independent presidential candidate in the upcoming election. Those binds to the two parties, they're very, very frayed.
Tom, last thing. What do we take from this?
Well, I think one is that there's a lot of frustration with the political system. Young people are engaged. They are going to show up to vote. But they're very, very cynical, particularly about the two major parties. And I think that has tremendous implications. And I think young people in particular, as we see more polarization of the parties, and we see the uptick of people identifying as independent. Gallup came out yesterday with their numbers on independents nationally. It was 51%, historic number. That's the highest percent of individuals in the United States identifying as independents. I think we see with these young people as perhaps a bellwether, right?
Yes.
They see the polarization, they're more likely to register independent, but they're not going to be disengaged.
Tom Riley and Jackie Salat, again, ASU Center for Independent and Sustainable Democracy. Good work. Good to have you here.
Thank you for
Thanks
having
so
us.
much,
Thank
Ted.
you.